much more seriously motivating is the fear of the monster from beneath. The thing that is coming to get you because you have not done anything. Because you're now 40, you're 40 years old and you haven't actually done anything. And you look back and for the past 15 years, you worked for the same company and you're just some kind of manager there and you're like, what the fuck is happening? There's all these horror stories of AI coming and massive government change and social political influence that's going to make you obsolete and you're doing nothing about it. And that's terrifying, I think. And it's like, if you think you're not terrified, if you every day are doing nothing about this monster coming, you live in absolute denial and fucking horror. And so then the more you're going to disassociate and scroll into tinier holes. This is my actual theory of like where this is going with anxiety and avoidance. I think we're going to hit levels of paranoia, anxiety, avoidance, and just like paralysis beyond fucking belief.
Warning, this podcast is for entertainment only and not intended for medical purposes.
Enter the Freud. Lipstick and eyeliner, or like hairdos, or fashion that hugs the curves, like sexual seductive things, I think are one example of that. Or refined sugar is an example of that. It's like we've gotten better and better at like at kind of like the way it's just like we've distilled the lovely things in the world more and more intense doses.
I'm sorry. Did you just make a comparison between refined sugar and yoga pants?
Yes, I did. That was good. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. I'm with you.
And I'm going to add a couple other things. Refined sugar, yoga pants, and here's the craziest thing of all. Like I don't know what it is, like scrolling through comment sections on your phone, or there's some other thing that's in the refined sugar and yoga pants. But here's an easy way to get at it. Video games.
Sure.
There's something about video games that's like, oh, pew pew, pew pew, pew pew, pew pew, pew pew, pew pew. But I notice when I'm on the plane and I'm like struggling on the plane, it's like if I bust out some stupid little game, I kind of like get hypnotized by the game and the time goes by. So now when I'm on the plane, I'll play these dumb little video games. And the games that I play are so unbelievably stupid. It's just like blip, blip, click, blip, 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 blip. But I think what it's doing is just kind of like hitting little dopamine, like satisfaction of completing a little puzzle or something. And it kind of like medicates me and numbs me out. And I'm kind of like, I can just like go through the plane ride or something.
Yeah, you don't have to pay attention to the person next to you and the fucking fuselage and the smell of the bathroom.
Right. And I think if I was scrolling through pictures of yoga pants or just like pictures of sexy ladies, or if I was just eating little candies or whatever, it kind of would maybe be a similar like thing.
Like Wall-E.
So I think, I think our culture, and again, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I think our culture unconsciously has gotten better and better and better and better at like hitting the little dopamine button in our brains, and we've just gotten, we've gotten like Wall-E.
This is where I immediately call bullshit on this entire idea of that we've really nailed what the dopamine pathway is. We know which part of the brain it is, nucleus accumbens or something like that. And it's like on and on goes this mythology that there is this neurotransmitter that is directly related to reward. And so somehow we then end up chasing it. Right? And I'm like, yeah, notice your story about you being on the plane where it's like you really have nothing to do other than suffer. And so you use this to escape. And it's like, well, what about those who are using video games in their everyday life? What are they doing? They're avoiding the suffering of their otherwise unaccomplished life. Thus, it becomes this major pattern of avoidance. This has nothing to do with fucking dopamine. It has... And then it gets into serotonin, norepinephrine, and I'm just like, okay, bullshit. I'm now calling bullshit, because how are you going to explain, as we do with dopamine, we say, oh yeah, dopamine then we can look at addiction as a neurotransmitter pathway, but then it exhibits specific behaviors, right? Like I go to the fridge and I pick up a beer and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't drink beer because I drank every single day this past week. Well, fuck it, I drink it anyway. The dopamine pathway tells me you have to do it, right? And then I'm like, well, what would this person be doing with their time otherwise? Well, confronting the fact that they are drinking at home alone and they have no friends. Or the fact that their career has stalled out years ago and they're doing nothing to advance their life's trajectory. And so I look at this mostly because in my practice, what I see is a whole bunch of not only just like anxiety disorders that cause massive withdrawal from the world into almost, what the hell is this? Like, agoraphobic response, like social anxiety to the point of agoraphobia. And then I look at just like other forms of just massive procrastination, where it's like, you have a month to get ready for this exam. Why do you wait for the last 24 hours and then try to crank the entire month's worth of reading and studying into 24 hours, freak yourself out, and then go in and do some lackluster performance? Why would you do that? How is that related to dopamine? How is that related to the fact that I've been scrolling on my phone, which you are, right? If you look at these people's screen time, it's just like, 6 or 8 hours of screen time. And then you'd think like, is this procrastination the result of addiction? Or where is this like profound avoidance of the otherwise important things you're supposed to be doing? That's my rant.
But so I don't get how what you're saying is how in terms of argument, how is what you're saying meet what the dopamine experts are saying these days?
Well, because I think it's oversimplified to say that, we're just chasing these little hits. We're chasing the like on your post. You're chasing that, and it's like, yeah, you're definitely chasing that. But what are you running from? Much bigger part of the story.
Your argument is that it's not just that humans are chasing a dopamine hit; it's that they're running from a shitty life and they're looking for meaning or stimulation or something.
Yeah. Well, they're settling with this tiny, insignificant stimuli instead of focusing in on something that would then provide real world feedback of good job. What a good job you've done. Because it's like,
okay, so another way of making your argument would be to say that if you look at a person who has a work where he goes out and he works productively and meaningfully with a good crew of people and they got a good project, and then he goes home and he's got like a good relationship and plays with his kids, and then some friends and family come over and they play volleyball at night, and then they like rest and relax and joke and talk about it and go to sleep, and he starts over. So he's got this like ideal life. Okay, imagine that guy. You're saying he would never have a problem with like being addicted to Instagram likes on his post.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's just more, the story is much bigger than, you're addicted to these small dopamine hits, so let's do a dopamine detox. Let's keep your phone away from you, and then suddenly you'll be okay. It's like, that's not true. Take the phone away, and then it's like you have a person who has no idea about how to actually prioritize time blocks and get shit done on a timely manner, and take larger goals, break them down into smaller obtainable ones, and then just start chunking work off so that by the end of the month they've done something significant. Instead of like by the end of the month they procrastinated and avoided, my key word is avoided, everything that would have helped them in their life. That would have moved them closer to their goals and their dreams and their aspirations, right?
Yeah. I think another thing, I'm super not an expert on this dopamine thing. But it's kind of because,
I don't think anyone is.
Well, Pete, there's people who think they are and who've done research and read everything or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. When I listen to them, I feel like they got something. I think they got some kernels of wisdom, but I can't really buy their whole story. Okay, but here's one thing I've heard from them is just related to what you're just saying, is that it used to be, 10,000 years ago, that you had to get a little dopamine hit. You had, this is an example I thought was really funny, is that way back, 10,000 years ago, really sweet things kind of didn't exist. Mostly you could get berries or fruit, but they weren't so all of our genetically modified and fertilizer has made our fruits extra big and sweet and plentiful. So back 10,000 years ago, berries and fruit were fairly rare, and you got them, and that was it. But the thing that was really the only thing that was super duper sweet was honey. So honey was the most insanely coveted thing of all, and oftentimes you would have to climb up a tree and get stung by a million bees to get it. But they would do it because they wanted the honey so bad. And then I also heard that most tribes would share, you'd get food and then you'd share it with everyone, but not honey. Honey you would just eat all yourself. Okay, so anyways, imagine you hear this rumor that they found a beehive and there's some honey, and so you jog through the jungle, you abandon your family and tribe and you jog through the jungle and climb up a tree and get stung by a bunch of bees, just to get a little honey. Point being that that dopamine that you got from honey, you're willing to fucking climb mountains and deal with bee stings to get just a little bit of a dopamine hit. Whereas nowadays, it's I'll be sitting watching Netflix and I'm I don't want to have to get up to go get a can of Coke, So back to what you were saying is that these dopamine people, I think their theory is that lack of motivation comes from dopamine, excess dopamine, because it's just we have so much that we've become lazy asses. We won't do shit anymore.
Okay, I like this evolution from running after a beehive to Netflix on the couch with Cokes, and you might as well just admit that you have 3 other screens open at the same time, right? If you're going to sit there and watch Netflix, you're also on your phone scrolling through the gram, switching over to dating apps, be that looks good, I don't know, whatever. And then back, and in the meantime, you're dude, turn this fucking show off. It's getting in the way of my, I have to turn the volume off on the TV because I'm dude, I can't hear what this person's saying. Oh, okay. And then I'm oh, right. And actually, there's very little. The problem is what we don't acknowledge is how quickly everyone habituates to these sources of dopamine, and what are we calling this? Just some kind of reward pathway, right?
Yeah.
Which is what you really see when you hijack your nervous system with really good drugs like cocaine or heroin or a lot of medication, right? You really quickly habituate to it, and so in the same thing, it's you get this. Supposedly, you get this dopamine response from scrolling. It tends to make me feel very sick instead. I feel like one of those heroin addicts, the first time you do it and you throw up and you're ugh. I have a bad reaction to it, and I can't quite force myself to break past that. I think I've done it recently with scrolling on Instagram, but my feed is just full of boxing And I'm just like, this shit is boring after a very short amount of time. And it hasn't caught up. Like TikTok does way better within 1 hour of scrolling. It will feed me the right stuff that makes me feel really sick and upset about myself. Like it very instantly makes me feel like, what the fuck did I just do with my hour? And then I'll immediately have a metacognitive experience of, what am I doing with my life? Like, what? And I think this is a huge impact of what people do. And it creates the monster that you're running from. That's what I mean about, I don't buy that this is all about some little reward of a like button. I think much more seriously motivating is the fear of the monster from beneath. The thing that is coming to get you because you have not done anything. Because you're now 40, you're 40 years old and you haven't actually done anything. And you look back and for the past 15 years, you worked for the same company and you're just some kind of manager there. And you're like, what the fuck is happening? There's all these horror stories of AI coming and massive government change and social political influence that's going to make you obsolete. And you're doing nothing about it. And that's terrifying, I think. And it's like, if you think you're not terrified, if you every day are doing nothing about this monster coming, you live in absolute denial and fucking horror. And so then the more you're going to disassociate and scroll into tinier holes. This is my actual theory of like where this is going with anxiety and avoidance. I think we're going to hit levels of paranoia, anxiety, avoidance, and just like paralysis beyond fucking belief. I don't think anyone can imagine the magnitude of what's going to happen. I see it already happening in my office where young dudes, bright, really good looking, very socially inclined, cannot even attend school. And I'm like, how did this happen? How does this occur? Well, the slight avoidance then reinforces itself to be like, oh, the fear is real. The fear is real and the threat is real. The threat is real. And the more that people then just go around saying like, Elon is an emotional terrorist. He's coming for everyone's jobs. He's coming for everyone. And I'm like, really? Dude, I don't think he's coming for me, bro. Like, I don't know who he's coming for. Yes, and then another thing that I keep hearing around, because I'm in DC, right? I'm in the epicenter of this Doge phenomenon, and so I think people are really talking about like, almost everyone I know knows someone who's already lost their job. Some people, both their parents lost their jobs, or many of their friends, like. It's amazing. Like, it's much more real. I don't know, like, how much of an escape and avoidance one would need to make it okay to live in a world where that's your perception. Right? And I'm not saying, like, oh, that's a valid perception. I'm just saying, like, that's one of the perceptions in this area is that Doge is coming to destroy your life. It has no emotional consideration. It will immediately, if you are seen to be redundant, you're gone. There is absolutely no recourse, none. And then people are like, how inhumane, how unbelievable. And it's like, yeah, I know. It's crazy. What, like, dude, that's a real monster compared to these imaginary ones coming. Right? There's some. Yeah, what's up?
And the healthy solution to this, I think I'm hearing you say this. The healthy solution to this is all humans sort of need to be engaged in sort of a life project where you're working towards or building or collaborating, working on something meaningful, or you got your life kind of headed in a meaningful, satisfying direction. That's like the healthy way to deal with the monster versus the less effective way is just to scroll and distract yourself from it.
Yeah, you might as well just do heroin. right? Just literally nod out and see how long you can stay in a heroin stupor without doing anything. Because it's like, yeah, in the case of Doge, there's a lot of people who are going to be deemed as obsolete and they're going to lose their jobs, right? And it's like that. There's a lot more of this coming, and it's like we as people in this modern world really need to take this seriously and try to figure out, like, well, how soon before all psychologists are replaced by AI shrinks? It's not too long, right? People would say, "Oh no, it's not true. That everyone really needs a person to connect with and talk to." And it's like, dude, one generation away, there will be none. There will be no humans. That, like, I use GPT to help me frame the cognitive behavioral interventions and treatment plans for some of these really sophisticated cases. And it does a great job. It's literally textbook accurate at this point, right? I still catch it fucking up every once in a while, but it's like, in the meantime, it's kind of like having a professor there who's really good at the subject and when I ask it to produce, like, just tell me what the next 3 sessions should probably look like. It will give you a pretty solid breakdown based on what you just... Now, you have to prompt it really correctly, but my point is, like, it won't be long before even you and I are obsolete. And so what are you going to do about that? Like, you can either then realize, oh, that's pretty amazing. Like, I guess I should probably start to figure out how to expand into some kind of an AI practice. I should make a psychotherapy practice that sends the patients home with apps and bots for them to then talk to and amplify their progress, so that instead of coming in and having 1 hour a week with a shrink, like, they check in every single day with their own AI shrink. That's a modification of themselves and you, some kind of triangulation of a thing. Why wouldn't you do that? What do you think? Other than I'm spewing madness, like, what?
Well, I just was thinking about the AI thing, and it was kind of like, you were saying you should do that to avoid being obsolete, but I don't think that's going to make you avoid being obsolete. It
would just carry you further into, instead of just being suddenly told, oh yeah, by the way, like, no money comes to real people anymore, right? BetterHelp is now like the government intervention. And sorry, but all human psychologists have been deemed obsolete because of their performance. Here we can actually show you your guys' performance, and it's dismal, right? And it's like, oh, don't say that. Oh my God, I thought we were doing such a good job.
Okay, so if you carry it to this extreme, let's say 8 years from now, AI has made 80% of people obsolete, and I'm assuming everyone's going to be doom scrolling. We used to have 3 screens up. Now everyone's going to have 13 screens up, right?
Yeah.
So what the fuck do we do?
I don't know. If I were to follow this idea of quickly get control of your own patterns of avoidance and promoting fears as real threats. And now look at what I'm saying is, like, there's a fear that I just introduced, a fear that all psychologists will be replaced by AI, right? It's just a fear. And in that fear comes a threat. Is that threat real or not? Well, if someone was easily swayed and their earpod fell out like that all the time, like, they would see this and then be like, oh my God, I'm complete, my whole career, it's uncertain. I spent all these years and I owe these loans and I'll never pay them back. And catastrophe, right? That's kind of how this works, is you must rely on a future catastrophe to then present this, what I was calling is this monster that is created by avoidance that emerges in the form of a fear backed up by a threat that seems real. But if you're able to point out that the fear is pretty real, right? The fear of losing your income and the fear of being obsolete and the fear of not having a place in society, like that's a fucking very scary fear. How much is this a real threat? Well, if you work for the government and you have a redundant position, it's fucking real. It's coming for you. No shit. Like, it's so real, and dude, if you are that person, I can't even imagine what the fuck you're doing. Like, if you're not, then just immediately being like, well, okay, things really changed. I had no idea I was in a position that was obsolete. I quickly need to go get a new job. Right? Happens all the time. People lose their jobs in this country all the time. Okay.
But what if AI makes it so there are no new jobs to get? So you can't avoid it by getting a new job. What do? The monster's coming for you, and it's going to get you.
I suppose that would take a full recalibration of what we look at as success and what are the benchmarkers of success. You know, it would be like, it might produce something very, very unhappy, like what we saw in Russia over the past several years, where the average age of men was like 48 before the average death because they drank themselves to death. It was like a zero-sum game. There's no way to advance your position in life. And so this is so, the stats on this is staggering. Maybe 48 isn't correct. Maybe it was 52. I don't know. It was remarkable to hear that, right?
Okay, but what you're saying is that I think you used the term success. And so I think what I think I hear you're saying is that feeling like you're productively engaged in a project that is heading you towards success, that's the antidote.
Yeah, and what would that mean? Like if it isn't just based on careers, which is what our whole lives have been, our parents' lives, like that's just been a marker for us forever, right? If that goes away, then suddenly it might be like, oh, success is just how fit you are and what a good parent you are and what kind of a friend are you and like what kind of a person are you? Do you have a sense of humor? Like what like suddenly the currency would shift. Social currency might become huge instead of like cash currency as opposed to like going back to the dopamine thing, it's
what you're saying is that it's you disagree with this dopamine addiction hypothesis, and rather you're saying there's a sort of epidemic or whatever of people who have slipped off the path towards success and are just kind of like floundering around in a Netflix swamp.
Yeah, serotonin, norepinephrine, endocannabinoids, like all of those are massive contributors to this avoidance phenomenon. I don't know how. I just fucking know because I just read it, right? Like, oh, well, that makes as much sense as all these so-called experts who just read themselves the same thing. Unless you're directly involved with the original rat studies that then produced L-Dopa. You know, in the 1950s, when they first thought, you know what they thought, what they thought dopamine was a byproduct of adrenaline. They were like, oh, what's this stuff? It's just some byproduct, right? And then in 1960s, this study with L-Dopa came along to deal with Parkinson's. Remember that? Where the movie with they throw the ball and suddenly he goes, me, and catches it. Like, yeah, it was a major breakthrough in the idea of like, what the fuck is this dopamine stuff, right? And so, like, our original ideas of what it was so wrong. And what we think it does today, I would assume is also wrong. Slightly right, right? It's a little bit right. We know it's involved in a couple things, but then when we try to tie it into the sophisticated nature of these behaviors of like, I chase the good versus I'm running from the bad, and like, how does that actually work? Well, shit, dude, I'm just on repeat now. I'm on repeat. What's your thought, good sir? You're laughing. Why? Because I've fucking got all amped up, and you can hear that I'm like I'm losing it.
Yeah. What do you know? Why you're charged up?
It's just because I see it coming, and I don't think I don't think anyone's ready. I don't think people are ready, and I'm just like, God damn it, dude. So then who's going to create the like mega treatment? Like BetterHelp isn't even comprehending the scope of this project. It has no intent.
The coming project of AI making us all obsolete.
And then what would that even mean? And like, let's assume that wasn't even it.